Last night, police were searching for a dangerous criminal who had disappeared into the hospital. The building was surrounded by police cars, and the commander of the operation, using a loudspeaker, demanded that the man lay down his weapon and release the hostages. Afterwards, he asked the sniper what the probability was of killing the criminal without hitting the hostage, and he was told 10%. At the same time, Lewis said that the man was acting too unprofessionally, his great emotionality giving the sniper the opportunity to hit him directly in the head. A moment later, the man hid behind the patient. Jack realized that their plan had been discovered, and he ordered an assault on the building. Lewis spoke again, advising the criminal to hide in some secluded place and close all windows and doors, fearing the assault team. Carl listened to the hostage's advice and hurried to close the curtains of the window. The police were confused as to how the man was able to predict their actions, but the commander said that the man had something very important, so they needed a new plan. Meanwhile, the criminal observed the actions of law enforcement agencies. He could not understand why they were not doing anything. The next moment it occurred to him that they really knew that he had that thing. The hero noticed the worry on the man's face and told him that he had a bigger problem because he was going to escape using a hostage, but the police had cornered him. After the guy's words, Carl turned to him, aiming the gun at him, saying that he did not allow him to speak and could kill him at any moment. Lewis just laughed at him, asking if he had read the name of the place carefully. Klaus asked, confused, what was special about this place. The guy replied that people only live in this hospital for 2 months. The criminal swore after his hostage's words. The hero confirmed the man's thoughts, saying that a dying man no longer has anything to fear. Hiding his smile in the shadows, he asked why the man had been looking himself over so closely a few seconds ago, and whether he was hiding something valuable. The man didn't have time to react when a pillow flew into his face. Lewis takes advantage of this and gets closer to the criminal. The hero hit his opponent in the face. The next moment, he threw the man to the floor. Subjected Carl asked if the guy had really deceived him. Lewis replied that there was no deception, that he did not have long to live, but not because of illness. Afterwards, he sat down next to the criminal, feeling the pocket of his vest. A few moments later, he pulled out a small box, asking if this was the thing the police were hunting him for. Carl asked the guy to return this thing to him. The hero became interested in what was inside, and he opened the box. He was surprised when a golden glow poured out from there. A moment later, golden rays surrounded him, and a voice in the boy's head announced that a recording of time travel was being made. The man looked at the boy with horror, saying that he had activated an account from another world, and now he could not avoid a tragic end. Lewis hit him again, telling him that he was already doomed to die. After picking up the gun, he said that if Carl didn't tell him more about this account, he would die. The criminal had no choice but to agree. He said that the meteor shower that occurred in 2800 had greatly changed their world. Some people gained the ability to travel to another world and complete tasks, after which they returned back. As a reward for passing the tests, one could receive cures for all diseases, treasures of that world, and all other possible benefits. The emergence of another world greatly shook the order of the native universe, and people began to kill travelers through worlds, wanting to learn the secret of crossing spaces. After going through a series of games and battles, people discovered that the key to moving was a special thing called an otherworld account. Those who receive this account receive a special mark and are teleported to another dimension within 15 minutes. A few minutes later, an armed group burst into the room. They expected to see anything, but certainly not what appeared before their eyes. The criminal sat tied up on a chair by the window. Meanwhile, Lewis received a notification that his first test would begin in a minute. Looking at the timer, he reflected on the information received. He came to the conclusion that no matter how much time had passed since the journey to another world, in reality, it was only a moment. Putting his phone away, he stood on the very edge of the roof. He was sorry that when moving, he couldn't take anything except the clothes on himself. The next moment, he noticed that the criminal was being put into a police car. The system again notified the guy that in 10 seconds he would enter the testing space. He felt no fear. He was happy that he had managed to find the supernatural world a few months before his end. The next moment his surroundings changed, and a voice announced that the traveler's connection was beginning. The hero didn't really have time to understand anything before he was already standing in an unfamiliar place surrounded by other travelers. The system stated that after character creation was completed, the participant could view the character card at any time using the power of thought. Lewis looked around with interest. Afterwards, he summoned his character card. After looking at all the stats, he realized that he needed to upgrade his skills because he was at the lowest level. He was distracted from his thoughts by voices behind him. Someone was advertising their new green level product, a poisonous sword. The men looked at the goods on offer with doubt. Charlie said that this sword is a reward for passing the parallel level trial. He said that there are 4 levels of testing, namely paper, parallel, strong, and brutal, and so far no one has passed the brutal level, but many have passed the parallel and strong levels, and that is where the blue and green level weapons come from. The merchant boasted that this poisonous sword was a stolen item from a player in the top 50 of the hatred table. The crowd began to bid for the weapon after hearing these words. Charlie was pleased that everyone had fallen for his tricks and that he would be able to make a good amount of money. Suddenly, the public area alarm sounded. Everyone was informed that an extremely dangerous person had been discovered trying to enter the zone. A moment later, a detachment of law enforcement agencies from the zone appeared. They were targeting the criminal who was number 1 on the hate chart. When everyone started to run away, the hero realized that the knights were targeting him. Charlie, seeing them, immediately began to collect his goods, throwing them into his bag as he went. Before he had time to collect everything, 2 knights rushed towards him. Charlie and Lewis both ran as fast as they could, and the merchant asked if the boy was a criminal too. The hero replied that they had no time for empty chatter. They needed to escape pursuit. Suddenly, the system reported that he was on the criminal list and is the first among the most dangerous criminals. His current index is 6 stars, which means that they will try to destroy him by any means necessary. Seeing a portal in front of him, Charlie shouted that it would be possible to teleport if they entered it. The knight saw where his target was heading and decided to use a ranged attack. At that moment, Lewis was a few centimeters away from the portal when the system said that his hatred level exceeded the acceptable threshold. The portal let him through at the last moment when the attack was almost upon the guy. Charlie watched the explosion from the knight's attack. He missed his chance to escape. Lewis found himself in a new location when the system informed him that he was entering a trial of severe difficulty. Death in this trial leads to death in reality, and his goal is to survive until the end. A moment later, an entity appeared and announced the beginning of the test. Do not fear death. After this, the spotlights turned on, falling on the hero. Thanks to the light, he was able to make out the outlines of the crowd surrounding him. The guy was curious about what would happen next. So far, the start was pretty good. Meanwhile, the host said that this program is sponsored by the Spatial Committee, as well as the inexhaustible dimension of singles. Lewis concluded that it was a blind date type program. Previously, the guy was a heartthrob, but after the injury, he had no opportunity to meet his fans. Edison said that now they would find out what the strength of their guest today was. He was very surprised when he saw that he only had a paper level. A moment later, he announced that this was the first time such a candidate had appeared on stage. The hero asked the system if there was any explanation for this level of power. The next moment, a system window appeared, from which he learned that paper is the weakest level, parallel is the level with mediocre combat power, strong is the level that requires great combat power, and cruel is the most powerful level. The guy summed up the data. He got into the trials for players at the boss level. If he dies forever. Meanwhile, Edison continued, saying that Lewis is the best in history. He will be able to show them the most beautiful and epic death, because only those players whose death is the most outstanding get to this stage. The hero interrupted his monologue, saying that he had previously mentioned that this was a show about blind dates, and Lewis had already been waiting for it to start. Edison noted that the guy was acting extremely confident. After this, he moved on to introducing the first girl. A moment later, she walked onto the stage. Lewis expected to see a human girl, but not a monster. The presenter said that Miss Tenderlips is the star of his program. She feeds on people's fear. She loves to ask the candidate about her beauty and then devour him, causing horror. The guy shouted that the girl was very pretty, and he was not flattered by the thought of being eaten. When the host announced girl number 2, the contestant appeared in front of the candidate. In an instant, she had a human upper body, and the lower part of the body was that of a spider. Edison said that she was their special guest. The girl loves to lay eggs in her partner so that he bears the offspring for her, but since all her partners are dead, she had to come to this show again. When the hero was asked what he thought of her, he said without hesitation that she was incomparably beautiful. After the girl left the stage, the host invited the next participant. A giantess came onto the stage, and Edison announced that she was a famous butcher who had once tortured 16 of his partners. The next moment, she let out her battle roar. Lewis was horrified by this sight and asked if she really was a girl. The giantess heard his words, which cut painfully through her heart. As the contestant rushed back with tears in her eyes, Edison asked the guy to refrain from making gender-biased comments, or he would be eliminated from the show. The hero was upset that there were no normal girls here who would meet human standards. The host heard him and said that they have such a girl, their last participant, the most famous beauty in their world, who is famous for her cruelty. The man's words interested the guy. When Edison invited the girl on stage, no one showed up, even several minutes later. The host received a message and said that the guest was too lazy to come and would look for a partner from home. Now she was watching everything via the air. Having said this, he continued by explaining the rules of the show. The guy must spend the whole day outside the house with the girls in a warm and close relationship. Now the guy has to go outside, where they are already waiting for him. Meanwhile, Charlie was in the courtroom. He explained that he didn't know Lewis. He was running away from the Knights because he was sure they were targeting him, but he was just an ordinary merchant. After listening to the young man, the head of the court said that they had conducted an investigation and found that he really had no connection with the most dangerous criminal. The merchant let out a sigh of relief, glad that the threat had passed. But the next moment, the chief continued. He said that for trading counterfeit weapons, he was sentenced to exile in the city of Hatred, before which he would be awarded 200 hatred points. After the verdict, Charlie was immediately dragged out of the courthouse. One of those present asked whether they should continue searching for the especially dangerous criminal. The leader replied that there was no need for that, because at his current level of ability, he would not survive the brutal test. Meanwhile, Diana took out her anger on her prey by cutting it up. She was indignant at Lewis's words and vowed to kill him the next time they met. The hero received a system notification from which he learned that all the girls were friendly towards him, with the exception of the giantess. Suddenly, Diana attacked him from behind, intending to kill him. The guy stood there without even moving, feeling the sword approaching him. He only asked where the beauty he accidentally offended had gone. The blade stopped literally a couple of centimeters away from him. Diana couldn't believe her ears. Lewis continued to say that even though he is known for his charm, he has never met such a stunning girl. He lamented that he had not been able to immediately discern in her the tenderness hidden beneath such a beautiful, strong body. Diana listened to his words with bated breath. She had never been told such words. The guy sincerely admitted that he had never seen such a person. She attracted him. He felt the girl's kind, caring, and strong character. The system reported that Diana's attitude had changed from hatred to friendliness. Lewis continued to gain her trust, saying that he had made a mistake in missing out on such a wonderful girl, and that among thousands of beauties he would never find another like her. The giantess's heart was ready to jump out of happiness, listening to the guy's words. When the system notified the hero that the girl's attitude had changed to infatuation, he decided to continue. Lewis uttered a phrase he had once heard about how true beauty lies not on the outside, but on the inside. Kneeling down in front of the flower, he concluded that it was for this very reason that beautiful flowers grew in this eerie place. Lewis thinks Diana is just like that. After his words, she threw down her weapon. When the guy turned around, he saw a happy girl. The system reported that its favorability towards the candidate had increased to the fantasy level, and he could now choose this participant as his wife. The next moment, the girl admitted that she was very touched by his words and finally made up her mind. When Lewis asked what exactly she meant, Diana began to take a deep breath. He had a hunch about what exactly she wanted to do. A couple of seconds later, the giantess screamed at the top of her lungs, causing the guy's ears to pop. Diana informed the remaining guests that Lewis was hers from now on. The hero himself was not pleased with the fact that the attitude of the two remaining girls changed to disgust. The happy giantess headed towards the object of her adoration. She said that they would stay together forever. Suddenly, sticky webs stuck to her legs. The next moment, she fell to the ground. Diana tried to understand what had happened as a web of cobwebs was already flying towards her from above, and the next second, she was pinned to the ground. The spider asked the giantess to give her the boy for re-education. Diana had a hard time getting off the ground, but she said that he belonged to her and no one dared touch him. After her words, Erica turned to the hero, asking if he would agree to bear the baby for her. Lewis noticed that her attitude towards him had changed after Diana's words, so if he answered no, he would most likely be killed, so he needed to seize the initiative. The guy looked at the girl with contempt, asking who allowed her to talk to him like that. Erica was shocked by his question. She did not expect such behavior from her victim. Meanwhile, the hero continued. He asked if she really said that she liked him only because she wanted a child from him. He began to act like a man with a broken heart, saying that the girl wanted to use him only as a vessel for childbirth. Did she really not have even a drop of feelings for him? When the spider said that this was not so, the guy attacked her with questions about how she would explain all this. They didn't even have a wedding, what the last name of their child would be. She wants him to just give birth to her child. The hero was surprised when her attitude changed to friendliness, and he also attracted the attention of another unknown girl. Edison, who was observing this, reported that gender equality agencies expressed their support for the candidate. The next moment he received a message, after which the host informed everyone that Miss Len had sent a message asking to tell more about the boy. This was the first time this girl had shown interest in anyone. Meanwhile, the hero was thinking that besides these three, there were other creatures that were participating in the test. The next moment he turned to the voice calling him. Eliza stood in front of him. Lewis decided to show himself off to gain the favor of more participants. Eliza asked the candidate if she was beautiful. But the guest didn't even have time to finish speaking when the hero slapped her. He said with anger in his eyes that he hated insecure people. Didn't she understand that with such an appearance she charmed the people around her? Eliza just looked at the guy silently, holding her cheek. Meanwhile, Edison was shocked by what was happening. He was sure that the guy would face quick reprisals for such debauchery, knowing the girl's behavior. When he turned his attention back to the screen, expecting to see an angry guest, he saw confusion and awkwardness on her face. Eliza tried to sense Lewis's emotions, but she couldn't see even a hint of fear in his heart. But hers, on the contrary, was beating much faster for reasons unknown to her. At this moment, the hero received a message that his hatred value was at its limit and he was receiving a new mechanism, the source of evil. He learned that this ability allowed objects that came into contact with it to experience a state of ecstasy for 10 minutes. Looking at the girl, he assumed that she was now under his influence. She suddenly said that she was burning with desire to taste the guy. After this, Eliza headed towards her target, saying that they would soon become one. The giantess, who had managed to free herself from the web, blocked the girl's path. A moment later, she sent her rival flying, saying that Lewis belonged only to her. Erica was not idle either. She crept up behind the hero, declaring that no matter what, he would belong to her. The guy turned around and, smiling, said that the other guests had a different opinion, pointing behind her back. The giantess and Eliza managed to unite against the spider. The hero watched as 3 brutal-level monsters fought among themselves for him. He understood the essence of this game. If he chooses one of the girls, the others will hate him, and eventually he will die. But if he just watches from the sidelines, then when they finish fighting, he himself will run into the monster and die. He suddenly distracted the girls from the fight, saying that he was very sorry, but he could not choose any of them. Battles don't give him any positive feelings. Eliza asked what he meant. The hero replied that even if they destroyed the entire world, it would not move him in the least. Diana asked if he really wanted to leave them, but the guy replied that he was simply a suspicious person, after which he proposed the following. Each of them would have some time alone with him in order to develop their feelings well. After this, he promised that he would definitely choose his beloved. Once this happens, he will try his best to take care of his wife and children. Lewis decided to give them an illusory hope in order to implement his plan. When Eliza took his hand, he said that even if he had to die at the hands of his beloved, he would accept it with joy. His words resonated pleasantly in her heart. Afterwards, she smiled contentedly, saying that she would definitely prove that only she was suitable for the role of his killer. Sometime later, the couple found themselves in a local cemetery where an unknown monster lived, and the system announced that there was 1 hour left until the end of the show. Lewis walked up to the monster and hit it on the head. Enraged by such impudence of some little man, he attacked him. The hero called Eliza for help when his enemy was dangerously close. The girl instantly appeared behind the monster, asking how he dared attack her lover. The ghoul wanted to explain himself to her. But the next moment, Eliza attacked him, tearing out his eye. The monster fled at the first opportunity, clutching at its empty eye socket. Meanwhile, the girl presented the guy with this eye, asking if he liked her gift. When Lewis took it, the system reported that the ghoul's eye was a very valuable material. Afterwards, he touched Eliza's shoulder, saying that he had a lot to tell her. At that moment, he activated his ability of suggestion. She said that when he looks at her like that, she gets lost and doesn't know when or how to kill him. The hero realized that her very instinct was to kill him. He hugged the girl, saying that she was the best girl he had ever met, and he would only want to die at her hands. But the next moment he said that the show would not allow this to happen. Eliza did not understand what his words meant. The guy explained that the show was organized so that everyone could see how she competes with others. How could they possibly want the girl to find her happiness? They were just making content based on her. Listening to these words, she came to the conclusion that there was logic in this. Afterwards, he pointed somewhere far ahead of him, saying that there was a monster there and he was very scared. Eliza immediately rushed in that direction to check who dared to scare her chosen one. Lewis watched the girl with a smile. He thought that if the program was plotting against him, then he would prepare a little surprise for them. Sometime later, Eliza encountered the monster and immediately dealt with it. She was in a state of ecstasy, and all she could think about was how delicious Lewis would be. A couple of seconds later, the ability's effect wore off, and the girl came to her senses. The hero received a message that Eliza's attitude had changed to murderous. During this time, he subjected Erica to the same technique, and now she is in a state of ecstasy, making her easily suggestible. The girl hugged the guy from behind, saying that if he chose one of the remaining two, he would definitely be killed in the end. But Erica is different from them. She just wants a child from him. When the hero becomes hers, she will protect him in every way. She warned that she could not forever hold his decision, and if he did not agree, the girl would immediately kill him. A moment later, Lewis said that if she wanted a child, it was in her best interest to protect it well. The girl confirmed his words, saying that his body was very valuable. After her answer, he approached her and whispered in her ear that in this test, danger awaited him everywhere. No one cared whether she would find her love and whether he would be able to bear her a child. The hero activated the suggestion, saying that this kind of program must be interrupted. Suddenly, Eliza's furious scream was heard from afar. The guy said that he rejected her and now she is going to kill him. Immediately after his words, an enraged girl ran out into the clearing. The spider protected the guy from the claws of her rival. Lewis made the most innocent and defenseless face he could, saying that he wasn't worth saving, he deserved it. Realizing that Erica had broken the rules they had established, Eliza set out to kill her. But the spider was faster. She released a web that covered her opponent's body. Eliza cut off her own hand to somehow free herself. Immediately after this, she rushed at her opponent. The next moment, Eliza chopped off one of Erica's paws. The girl demanded that the spider return her boyfriend to her. Neither of them wanted to back down from their position, which is why they clashed in a fierce duel. Meanwhile, Lewis learned that there were 5 minutes left until the end of the test, and he watched the girls fight with pleasure. Suddenly, Diana called out to him. He turned towards her, saying that he had been waiting for her for a long time. The girl was unhappy. She waited for him at the agreed place, but he never came, spending time with others. The giantess came to the conclusion that he had been lying to her all this time. The hero was about to object to the girl's thoughts, but the next moment he saw his hand being separated from his body, feeling terrible pain. He sank to the ground, leaning against the stone. Diana knelt down in front of the wounded boy, saying that he reminded her of someone from the past. She said that at that time she was not yet a resident of this world, but worked as a butcher. Because she was ugly and fat, no one looked at her. One day she met a man who admired her greatly and said many nice words, and for the first time she felt that someone cared about her. Some time later, the man handed her a folder with important documents. He asked her to keep it with her, even knowing that it was contraband. Diana accepted the folder. After she was pursued by bandits, intending to get these documents, the girl tried her best to hide from them. She found herself near a half-empty establishment, noticing her lover there. Diana heard him tell his friends that she, like a little dog, would go to the ends of the earth for him, fulfilling his every whim if only they would ignore her pitiful appearance. The girl said that on that day she cut the man into many small pieces. What Lewis said at their first meeting was very similar to his words. Therefore, she will do the same to the hero as to her ex. Lewis was able to activate the suggestion because, fortunately for him, Diana grabbed his severed hand. When he asked the giantess if she remembered her name, she did not understand why he was asking. He explained that while she was on the show, her real name was never used. The hero said that it was all because neither this program nor that person was truly interested in getting to know her. She was just a tool in their hands. When Diana asked what she should do, Lewis replied that the girl should kill. He made her think about who was constantly using her to create content, who was forcing her to perform like a clown, who was hiding her real name. She had to kill them all. After the guy's words, the giantess rushed at the girls, intending to kill each of them. Thus, all three rivals tried to kill each other. The system reported that there were 30 seconds left until the end. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to him, Lewis collected a spider's paw, a severed hand of a monster girl, and a ferocious ripper weapon from the field. Suddenly, Eliza was distracted from the fight. She became interested in what the guy was doing. When the hero noticed that all eyes were on him, he bowed, saying that it was nice to meet them, immediately after which the system reported that the program was finished and his task was successfully completed. Edison was amazed that for the first time in his show, someone managed to get out alive, and all three guests lost. The crowd was indignant. Many demanded their money back. They wanted to see someone die. The host ignored the crowd's cheers, saying that the show would be archived and could lead to a downgrade in the contestants' ratings. The next moment, a giantess appeared in front of him. She said that now no one needs his show. Edison stood up, saying that his guests had a couple of comments about today's program. He asked if they really wanted to have a showdown right on stage. It could damage their reputation. A sudden voice made everyone in the room pay attention. The host bowed, asking why the girl had come to them. The fourth guest of today's show, Miss Len, appeared before everyone. The girl said she was giving them 10 seconds. She hated crowds. Edison couldn't tell if she was serious. Seeing that her words had no effect, the girl began counting down. Everyone started to run away in panic, worried that if they didn't manage to get away, the girl would kill them. After some time, only 4 people remained in the hall. After which, Len approached the presenter and asked him to give her all the information about Lewis. When Edison said that he only had a paper level and was not worth her attention, the girl made a displeased face, repeating her request. After this, the man quickly gave out all the information he had. Lenya was pleased with what she saw. Putting the paper in her pocket, she said that they could continue their showdown without her participation. After these words, the girl disappeared as suddenly as she had appeared. Eliza was surprised that Len was seriously interested in this boy. Meanwhile, Charlie was busy cleaning up the city of hate. He cursed the guy who got him caught. Suddenly, on the main gate where all the completed tasks were displayed, a new completed task of the hard level appeared on the first line. Charlie was very surprised that anyone could pass a test of this level. Lewis was teleported to the City of Hatred, after which the system reported that his level had been raised to 3, he could return to his world at any time, or the hero could explore this world for an hour. The guy chose to explore the world. When all the system windows disappeared, he noticed that his severed hand had returned to its place. He began to look around, noticing that this place was not much different from the safety zone he had entered at the very beginning. Lewis decided to look at his reward for the quest. Calling up his inventory, he was interested in the purple chest. A window for the demonic affinity skill appeared in front of him. It allows him to enter a state of demonization by attracting evil, the duration of which is equal to spiritual power multiplied by seconds. After reading all the details, he concluded that the skill could be life-threatening. But despite this, the hero decided to study it. Afterwards, he decided to examine the weapon he'd picked up during the test. A window appeared in front of him with the stats of the Fierce Ripper. It was capable of increasing its own attack power by absorbing the souls of those it killed, reducing the enemy's defense to practically 0. Lewis was amazed at how powerful the weapon was. A moment later, he called him. As soon as the giant scissors were in his hand, his health points began to drop continuously. He noted that it was quite comfortable and light, but if he wanted to use it, he would need a lot of medicine to recover. Suddenly, the monster approached and called out to the guy. He was happy that he would have a new toy. Only when he was dangerously close to the hero did the monster notice the terrifying aura of death that surrounded him. When the guy took a step towards him, thousands of dead souls followed him. It was a terrifying sight. The monster started running for its life. Lewis realized that the Ripper had scared him so much that he decided to call off his weapon. A moment later, Charlie called out to him. The hero recognized the merchant he had met earlier. He immediately approached the culprit of his imprisonment here. Lewis apologized to the guy, saying that it was his first game, he was new here. Charlie looked at him with undisguised suspicion, asking how the new guy could become the most wanted criminal in the security zone. The guy replied that he himself didn't know the reason. He had just finished the rookie test and asked a friend to tell him about this world. Charlie said he would do him a favor and tell him everything he knew. This world consists of several safe zones in 4 districts: paper, parallel, strong, and hard. The safe zone is a place that is carefully guarded by the system. Even if he dies there, he will not lose his items and can continue to exist. The paper level area is a low-risk area also guarded by the system and contains low-level monsters that allow them to complete trials. The parallel level area is a zone that is partially controlled by the system. Very strong monsters live there, and high-level equipment can also be obtained there, but if you die there, you will lose all your items. A high-level area has low defense. Monsters of a fierce level appear there. Only the best players can pass the test there. If he dies there, he will lose not only items, but also all character levels. Charlie warned the boy that when choosing assignments, he should only take on those areas that he could handle. Lewis asked about the hard level area. The merchant replied that until today no one had been able to pass through it. This area is completely uncontrolled by the system. The legendary purple class weapon is produced there, but due to the fact that it is located in a restricted area, it is impossible to get to this location through the portal. After Charlie said that they are now in a strong level area, they need to complete tasks to reduce their hatred meter in order to return to the safe zone. He asked what Lewis's hate points were, and if he was a newbie, he would be able to return pretty quickly. Having opened his characteristics, the hero tried not to show his surprise. He had an infinite hatred indicator. Sometime later, they walked through the city. Charlie told them that cunning and deceit are held in high esteem here, and those who ended up here because of trifles are considered inferior beings. Suddenly, they came across a monster who was trying to drag the boy somewhere. A moment later, the monster pierced its victim with its claws. He said that when passing by, you should definitely stop in and buy something. Charlie said that the local inhabitants do not like people, and one must behave very carefully so as not to attract their attention. But our hero was already standing in front of the store gates. The merchant looked at his partner as if he were crazy. He told him to get out of there as quickly as possible. Ignoring all the advice, Lewis entered the building. Once inside, he approached the counter saying he wanted to buy a restoration potion. The seller said that for such a special guest, the price was 500 points per bottle. The hero looked at the price tag and said that it indicated a completely different price of 50 points. The monster approached the guy, saying that for people it is 10 times more expensive. After his words, Lewis moved away from the counter. The seller, laughing, said that it was too late to leave now. The hero turned around at his words and asked why the seller decided that he was going to leave. The monster felt threatened by the guy and took a few steps back. The next moment, Lewis attacked him with scissors. The lower half of the seller's body was cut off, leaving only the monster's head and arms hanging in the air. The hero, surrounded by an aura of evil breath, began to approach him, intending to destroy him completely. The monster pressed himself against the wall, begging the guy not to come near him. He said that he was the owner of this store, and if he was killed, the city mayor would not let him go so easily. The hero trapped the man in his scissors, after which he said that he would spare him if he sold him all the things at a 10% discount. The monster, sobbing with fear, agreed to the guy's terms. A few minutes later, Lewis emerged from the store wearing a dark hooded cape. He was pleased that he had managed to buy 20 of each health potion and spirit elixir for only 200 points. He also managed to acquire a cloak that can hide the breath of evil from powerful level creatures, and it can also hide the guy from cruel level monsters for 10 minutes. Lewis liked this world more and more. As soon as Charlie noticed the guy coming out, he ran up to him, examining his coat. He didn't understand how Lewis managed to get it, because it was very expensive. The hero replied that the owner gave him a discount on this product. The merchant could hardly believe his words. This seller's products are all 10 times more expensive than usual. It's impossible to imagine him giving anyone a discount, especially on something like this. The guy looked at the man standing in front of him again and came to the conclusion that he would never let Lewis go. Thanks to him, he could get rich. The next moment, he invited the hero to become friends by activating his account. Lewis also activated his and brought the back of his hand with the seal to the guy's seal. Afterwards, the system reported that Charlie had been added as a friend and he could send him messages at any time. Immediately after this, the merchant disappeared. The hero looked at his hand and was surprised that travelers could communicate with each other in this way. A moment later, the system reported that his time in this world was up. The next second, he was standing again in a hospital gown on the hospital roof. The guy was told that the next test would begin in a day. Lewis turned on his phone and looked at the timer. He had spent 2 hours in that world, but only 12 minutes had passed here. Afterwards, he summoned a restorative potion from his inventory. He was glad that he could use things from that world here. The next moment, he drank the potion and hurried off the roof. Some time later, he was walking down the street, noting that the shelter across the street was quite noisy today. Meanwhile, Charlie was handing out candy to the children from the orphanage. He boasted that he had finally found a sponsor who would provide him with money for their upkeep. Suddenly, he noticed a guy passing by who seemed familiar to him. Lewis walked to the hospital's main entrance, where he was greeted by 2 nurses asking where he had been all this time. He replied that he went out to get some air, that he couldn't be cured by conventional means anyway, and that all he could do was rely on fate. The hero approached his room. Even though he had drunk 5 bottles of potions, he was not sure that they would somehow affect his illness. Opening the door to the room, he was very surprised. There was a very beautiful girl with blonde hair lying on his bed. After he entered the room, she changed position, rolled over onto her stomach, and began playing on the game console. Lewis turned away from the stranger, thinking his illness was progressing. He went to the nightstand for the pills. Having poured the required dose into his palm, he said that this was the most unreal hallucination since the onset of brain problems. A she-devil who can't get past the very first level of a children's game. He drank the medicine, saying that in a minute it should disappear. The stranger shoved the console in his face, saying that if he was so confident in himself, then let him go through it himself. After which she stared at him with displeasure on her face. The hero decided to touch the girl, amazed at how much his hallucinations were progressing. Lenya stood motionless, enduring the guy's touch on her. A moment later, she couldn't take it anymore and, calling for her weapon, said that if he didn't stop, she would kill him. Lewis asked her not to be angry with him. He would complete the first level of the game for her. A couple of seconds later, a nurse knocked on the hero's room, asking if everything was okay with him because a rumble had been heard from there sometime later. A few minutes later, the guy completed the first level of the game, defeating the character of the same name and the girl. She sat on the table thinking that her idea of herself in this world was no good. Lewis said that she actually has a pretty good look in this game, while the old version was much worse. He explained to her that people tend to imagine something terrible when they hear about something unknown, but not about beauties like her. After this, he said that he was flattered that the fourth guest had visited him in this world. Len smiled bloodthirstily, saying that he really deserved to be a survivor after the awakening of the source of evil. He was the first one who managed to survive with this ability. The hero could hardly believe that everyone else had been killed with such an ability. The guest said that she came to remind him not to go to the test alone if he is not confident in himself. If he shows himself well, then they will meet again. He asked her to tell him more about the source of the evil, whether it was somehow connected with his illness, and he was also interested in whether creatures from her world could come to this one. Len replied that she was a special case and no one else was able to move here. If he wanted to know more about his ability, then he had to try his best not to die. The next day, Lewis took on a new challenge in the hard-level multiplayer mode. When he came out into the square where all the players had gathered, he was amazed by their number. The hero walked through the crowd, attracting interested glances. Some people didn't understand how he, being at level 3, was able to get here. Suddenly, a man who was the master of this task appeared. After looking at everyone, he pointed at Lewis. Coming closer, he asked what was wrong with his level. Jack asked how he got here with his abilities. He should be among the paper ones, but not here. Having received in response that the guy was simply lucky, the man did not get involved in it, only telling him to stay out of the way. Suddenly a bullet pierced his head. The system announced Jack's death. The old man who appeared greeted everyone and said that he needed to deal with an employee who had violated the law on being late. Everyone present was shocked by what was happening. Lopez said they shouldn't be so surprised. If they've seen the handbook, they should know that employees can't rebel against their manager, which is what they currently are. The hero concluded that in this test, the director could kill an employee with one blow for any violation of the rules. Meanwhile, Lopez continued. He said that in their directories there are 3 orders. The first one is simple and blue, the other 2 are more difficult and are red. Afterwards, he said that their job was quite simple. They needed to complete these 3 orders and they would be able to get out of here alive. After his words, the system announced the activation of the main task, to get out of this place alive. One of the brave souls tore out the sheet of paper with the red task, saying that it shouldn't be something impossible. After this, the system reported that the contents of the delivery were a slap in the face, and the recipient was a high-level boss, Hellwolf. The man immediately said that he refused this task. After his words, Lopez shot him in the head, saying that according to the 5th article of the handbook, they do not have the right to refuse the mission. He told them not to forget the rules. Another daredevil decided to try his luck by tearing out a blue leaf. He had to deliver dinner to room 306 of the rotating skyscraper. Delighted with such an easy task, he rushed to the customer. Everyone in the room just looked at each other silently. Lewis said that the task was to deliver 3 orders, and that once an order was received, it was impossible to refuse, so there was nothing stopping him from intercepting someone else's. They began to surround him with smug smiles on their faces. One of the players said that he only had 1 red order that he could exchange with him. Lewis asked if the guy really wanted to trade with him. In his last encounter with Lenya, the hero asked if he would be able to pass trials below the cruel level due to his ability. The girl replied that he could, but the difficulty of the tests of others could be increased. If the test had a parallel level, then due to his intervention, it would change to a stronger one. The hero said that he wouldn't mind trading with someone for fun. The next moment he opened his reference book, showing red sheets, which, when turned over, everyone saw another red task. The crowd was shocked. They didn't understand why he didn't have a single blue task. After that, the guy asked if there were any people left who wanted to exchange deliveries with him. At that very moment, everyone began to disperse, telling him to stay away from them. When everyone left the room, Lopez told the young man that this was the first time he had seen a man with 3 red orders, but it was a pity that with his level it would only be a waste of time. Lewis asked the man if he wanted to have some fun watching him complete these tasks. He was flattered by this offer. The director said that he would not give any concessions, but since the young man wanted it that way, he could ask him any question. After his words, the hero said that the man's actions led him to the idea that he was deliberately forcing everyone to refuse red orders and take only simple blue ones. After which he suggested that the reward for the red task which he pays to the performer is very large, which is not at all beneficial to the man. Lopez listened to the young man with interest. Lewis said that if his guess was correct, successfully completing 3 red deliveries would be a serious financial blow to the man. The director confirmed the guy's guess, after which he asked if he had any questions. The hero turned towards the exit, reminding that there was only one question at issue. He was not eager to get acquainted with Lopez's revolver. When the boy disappeared behind the door, the man said that he expected nothing less from a traveler who had experienced something like this. He was interested in seeing his full potential. As Lewis walked out of the hall, he was blinded by a bright light that suddenly appeared in the dark room. A man with a glowing head approached him. He said that he had 3 blue tasks and offered to swap. John said that with this level, the guy would not be able to complete 3 red tasks, but if he handed this task over to him, he would still have a chance of survival. Noticing Lewis's searching gaze, the man said that if he had any objections, he could challenge him. The hero remembered him. Charlie said that he had passed a test of a strong level. When John saw the guy take out his reference book, he didn't hide his smile, saying it was a smart choice. But the next moment, the guy tore out one of the sheets, activating the task. He walked past the man, saying that his hand had twitched accidentally. John was angered by the boy's actions and decided to attack him from behind, but Lewis summoned his weapon before the man could reach it. John stood frozen in a daze, fully aware of the full power of the purple-level weapon. A few seconds later, the man moved away from the boy, saying that he was far from weak and would definitely cope with these tasks. After which, the hero said goodbye to him and headed off to make the delivery. Sometime later, Lewis was already standing at the house where the boss was, to whom he needed to deliver the doll. He rang the intercom and said he had a delivery for a crazy lady. The hero listened, hoping to hear something in response. Suddenly, a deafening scream came from the intercom. After waiting a few minutes, he again reported that the courier had arrived. At first, a strange hissing sound was heard, through which the guy managed to make out the phrase, "Enter yourself." Lewis said that the gates were locked and he wouldn't be able to get in, but in response he heard another hiss. The guy realized that he had no choice and he called for a weapon. After which, without thinking, he cut down the huge gates. A few seconds later, he was at the front door, opening it. When he went inside, he was shocked by what he saw. The spacious room was littered with trash, and in the center on the sofa sat a girl in front of a monitor. The hero broke the silence by saying that he had delivered her order. The girl turned her head towards him, gesturing for him to speak more quietly. Her pet had just fallen asleep. He apologized and whispered to her if she would accept the delivery. The girl approached him, asking if this doll was her Sonia. Afterwards, she looked at her pet, saying that Sonia was already in her arms. Lewis realized that the girl was not herself and began to carefully back away towards the exit. Suddenly, the girl threw the doll, calling the guy a liar. She became furious and attacked the delivery man, saying that he wanted to steal her child. The hero ran away from her, swallowing restorative potions along the way. The customer was determined to kill him. As soon as the guy saw the door, he ran into the room without thinking. He locked it with a latch to provide himself with temporary shelter. Afterwards, he looked around the room he found himself in. It was strikingly different from the other rooms in this house. He noticed a drawing on one of the walls and went to take a closer look. Looking down at the table, he noticed a calendar where the days since the disappearance of the woman's daughter were marked. The hero felt sorry for her, because she had been looking for her child for so long. He was leafing through a calendar when a business card fell out. It said that if you paid enough, they would deliver anything, and after reading the inscription, the guy thought that the director had gone too far in his lie. The next moment, the knife cut through the door. The guy looked around the room, trying to come up with a plan of action. Suddenly, he noticed a wardrobe. Upon opening it, Lewis had a brilliant idea. A few minutes later, the woman broke down the door. After that, she finally managed to get inside. Her rage subsided at what she saw. The hero dressed up in her daughter's clothes, completely immersing himself in this role. The woman slowly walked up to her daughter, whom she saw in front of her, asking when her girl had grown so big. A few moments later, she hugged the guy whose plan had succeeded, saying that it didn't matter how she had changed. The main thing was that she was alive. After these words, the hero recoiled from the woman's body, saying that she was wrong, and the next moment, he plunged the knife into his stomach. Looking at this scene, fragments of memories flashed through the mother's mind. Her little daughter was playing with a doll in the garden. While the little girl was enthusiastically drawing, an unknown man approached her. She turned around to see who it was. A few seconds later, the doll was covered in blood. The woman came for her daughter when it was time for dinner, but instead she saw only a pool of blood. While searching for her daughter, she came across a store that would deliver whatever their customer wanted. The woman asked the man if he had seen the girl from the photograph. Her heart sank for a moment when she was told that he had seen her. The hopeful mother asked where he had seen her. Lopez said he would be happy to tell, but his company's services were not free and would come at a hefty price. She fell to her knees, saying she would do anything to get her daughter back. After her words, the man said that she should give up her mind and soon her daughter would return. A moment later, he absorbed the poor woman's mind, telling her that she would become their regular customer. Lewis had used a compulsion on her to wake her up from her madness, and now he watched as she tried to resist him. She was delirious, begging not to be awakened from her sleep. Realizing that this would take a long time, the guy moved towards the exit of the room. Instead of our hero, the woman saw her little daughter, but the next moment, this reality of hers shattered into pieces, and in front of her stood a guy with a doll in his hands. He congratulated her on having regained most of her sanity. She felt as if she had woken up from a long sleep. Lewis sat down next to the woman, handing her the doll. He said that his boss had sent it. She should figure out for herself what exactly this package meant. He said there were plenty of other things in the world she could do besides deceive herself and depend on others. When the system reported that he had completed the order and been promoted to an excellent employee, he stood up and said that it was time for him to go back. When he reached the door, he was called out to. The woman asked if her lost daughter Sonia was still alive. He said with a smile that she should go and see for herself and find out everything. When the guy left her house, she put the doll on the bed, saying that she would definitely figure everything out. Meanwhile, Lopez held the woman's broken figure, saying she had been a good customer. After which he left her aside and said that it was time to begin the second part of his play. He asked Sonia if she agreed with him. A quiet voice came from behind the tightly locked door. Other players weren't doing as well as Lewis, and one by one their clients dealt with them brutally. Meanwhile, John ran through the forest having obtained one red order. The system informed him that he needed to deliver love to the Crypt King. Suddenly he stopped, sensing someone's presence, thinking that there might be an ambush here. He hid in the bushes, intending to find out where the danger was coming from. To his surprise, John only saw Lewis changing clothes. The hero heard a noise from the bushes and turned around. The next moment, he waved his hand with a smile at his new acquaintance, telling him to come out of hiding. The man was very surprised when he noticed a sign above the boy's head that said, "Excellent worker." Lewis said he met an obsessive customer in women's clothing who wanted to look better than him, but the guy won. When John asked if he had any more orders like this, the hero held out the dress he had taken off, asking if he wanted to try it too, but he refused, realizing the absurdity of the idea. The man took a closer look at the boy, coming to the conclusion that he had simply incredible abilities, and if we remember his weapon, then he could very well be the one who passed the test of the hard level. A few moments later, he offered Lewis a partnership. They could help each other complete the red tasks. He explained that monsters can leave bad reviews. They will track down couriers intending to get rid of them. If they work together, it will be much easier to deal with bloodthirsty monsters. To prove the sincerity of his intentions, John handed his order to the hero so that he could familiarize himself with the contents. Noticing the surprise on Lewis's face as he read the order sheet, the man asked what had caused the boy to react that way. The hero returned John's task and materialized his red order. A moment later, the man learned that they had the same customer, only the guy needed to deliver light, not love. He said that in that case they should stick together. The next moment, strange sounds were heard behind them. A monster-hunting couriers came out into the clearing where they were. The guys managed to hide among the bushes. John told his partner to go to the mission site while he got rid of the monster, but Lewis took out his cloak, telling the man to follow him, and perhaps they could pass the monster without taking any damage. John activated his ability, observing the enemy. He said that if the guy is not confident in his abilities, then he can safely leave while he deals with the monster himself. But the hero assured him that everything was fine and they could move on. A moment later, the enemy discovered their hideout. The monster saw someone about to deal with his prey, raising giant scissors over the man. The unknown man reeked of danger. He noticed the uninvited guest, glad that another fool would become his victim. The monster said that he was just passing by and began to back away. Lewis was amused by his words and began to slowly approach the monster, who was trembling with fear. A few moments later, the guy's opponent was already running as fast as he could from that place. When the hero no longer felt the alien presence, he announced that his partner could get up. John was amazed by the guy's abilities. He said that having someone like him as an enemy was a very dangerous undertaking, so the man offered to become friends. A few seconds later, they touched each other's handles, adding each other as friends. When they came out of hiding, John explained that if in this test, if the monster is not satisfied with the order, it will go crazy and track down the traveler intending to kill him. The man ran ahead the entire way, supposedly escaping from the monster's pursuit. At the same time, Lewis, who was pursuing him, scared away all the monsters in their path with his aura. Sometime later, they arrived at the place. The partners entered the crypt area. Suddenly, John thought he heard a voice from above. A monster climbed down from the tree, asking how a man dared to enter the territory of the Crypt King, after which he jumped down. The monster with the bandaged eye said that he hates people. John said that he had arrived to deliver his order. After this, the ghoul said that he wanted to get his eye back. The man did not understand what the monster meant. He said that one day he went to the surface to enjoy some delicious food, and he met a terrible nomad man who stole his eye. The Crypt King was filled with hatred, but the robber had a terrifying monster bodyguard whom he would not dare attack. John didn't understand how a monster could be a bodyguard for some person, while Lewis coughed strangely, agreeing that it was difficult to imagine. Meanwhile, the Crypt King continued. He said that this is why he contacted the delivery service. They are obliged to either bring him the stolen eye or give him their own. Suddenly, a group of uninvited guests appeared behind John. Lewis, noticing the strange expression on his partner's face, asked who they were, and in response he heard that they were old acquaintances. The girl was flattered that the man had not forgotten her. Afterwards, she moved towards the guys, asking if John, for old friendship's sake, could allow himself to be killed without resistance, ensuring the girl could easily carry out the order. The hero got her attention by asking if he could leave quietly while they had their showdown. He was just a newbie. Amelia smiled sweetly and replied that if her target had an assistant, then he too had been ordered to be eliminated. Besides, he didn't look much like a newbie. The hero had no other choice. He said that he too was going to treat her as a newcomer, after which he leaned against the ghoul, saying that only he could resolve this situation. The monster didn't understand what was happening. A few moments later, Lewis removed his hood and turned to the Crypt King, asking if he recognized him. He looked in surprise at the guy standing in front of him. The ghoul recognized his offender and was overcome with rage. Amelia's comrades laughed at the hero, saying that giving oneself over to the clutches of a monster in such a way was pure suicide. The Crypt King intended to attack him, but he was alarmed by his victim's calm in the face of death, so he stopped at the last moment. Lewis looked up and smiled dangerously, asking why he didn't continue. The monster was afraid that the woman was somewhere nearby, and if she saw that this boy was wounded, he would not get off so easily. Having thought about all this, the ghoul placed his paw on the hero's shoulder, saying that they were friends despite their past. The rest were perplexed as they watched this scene. Meanwhile, Lewis took the opportunity to ask the monster to help him get rid of the uninvited guests. In response to his request, the ghoul scratched his head uncertainly, saying that there were too many of them. After his words, the hero took out the monster's eye, which he so desperately wanted to return. The boy said that if he behaved well, he would give him his eye back. But if the Crypt King suddenly doesn't need it, the hero will tell his beloved that he really likes this trophy, and it would be nice to get another one to go with it. The monster took the eye, saying that he would do anything. After this, the system reported the successful completion of the order. The hero was promoted to head of the HR department, and now he can, to a certain extent, resist the will of the manager. Meanwhile, the king of the crypt rushed at the uninvited guests. He attacked them with lightning speed. Amelia, having spotted a suitable opportunity, decided to escape, wishing good luck to her comrades. Suddenly, John attacked her from behind. The girl managed to dodge the fatal attack. The man warned her not to dare to disturb his partner in any way. She noticed that he was not indifferent to this boy, and this further fueled her interest in Lewis. The next moment, she used the substitute, leaving a straw doll in her place. At this time, our hero was already quite far from the crypt. He activated a new task. He needed to deliver laughter to the Hills metro station. Lopez, who had been in the shadows all this time, said that things were starting to go wrong in his performance. It was his turn to intervene in this drama as its screenwriter. He took control of his actors, who began to deviate from the plot. By controlling them, he got rid of the obstacles one by one, after which he absorbed the levels of the killed players, saying that it was too little. Meanwhile, the ghoul dealt with his opponents. He turned to John, saying that he would remember someone strong like him. Suddenly, the monster felt a terrible headache. The man asked what was happening to him. The Crypt King said that he had been alone for a long time and took on several orders. If he did not get what he wanted, then the manager took over. John sat down next to the monster, saying that he had his other order. The ghoul was surprised by this statement. The next moment, the man sat on top of the monster, lying on its back, telling it to trust him. After which he kissed the king of the crypt. The monster cried with happiness. Lewis reached the nearest town, noticing that the monsters had become much more ferocious than they had been before. Turning his attention to the girl who had pinned him to the wall, he asked why she was pursuing him when her target was John. Amelia said she didn't know what their relationship was, but all the players in the top 100 had abandoned all moral principles. John is no exception. He will do anything to improve his level. Lewis asked why she was telling him all this. The girl approached the guy's face, freezing in dangerous proximity, and said that she wanted to know what he was worth. Sometime later, Lewis was running away from Amelia as fast as he could. She asked why he suddenly ran away from her. She was not going to eat him. As he jumped over the obstacle, he heard the girl say that her boss was looking for a guy who had passed the fierce level for a high reward. Getting ahead of him, she said that he was the one she was rocking. He couldn't hide from the girl with his current indicators. Lewis asked why she didn't knock him out right away when she got the chance. Smiling, Amelia replied that she had a proposal for him. After that, she took out her weapon. Aiming at the boy, she activated the spell. The hero did not dodge, realizing that this was a spell weapon and would not cause much harm. A few moments later, he was pleasantly surprised to realize that his skill stats had increased for a certain amount of time. The girl explained that the trick of this dungeon is that until the player encounters the Overseer, no matter how strong the player is, he will not be able to defeat the boss. As luck would have it, Lewis was the warden. The hero understood her plan. Sometime later, the guy managed to open the huge doors with difficulty. In front of him, he saw a creature that was making an incomprehensible howl. Noticing the guest, it turned towards the entrance, after which, approaching the guy, it sat down in front of him and began to cry, shedding bloody tears. For some unknown reason, the guy also had tears in his eyes, and he asked the monster sitting in front of him why he was crying. Having received no answer, the hero sat down opposite his client, asking him to smile at him. Again, there was no reaction. Lewis tried to smile himself, but he was only overwhelmed by more sadness. A moment later, the monster climbed onto his back, saying that he was in a lot of pain. He asked them to laugh together while the hero was gradually consumed by dark matter. The monster made its way into the guy's inner world. They found themselves in a hospital ward. He realized that this man had experienced a lot of pain. He wanted to see what fears haunt our hero. Lewis said that since he wanted it so badly, he would let someone else see it. Sadness began to back away in fear after the boy began to show him part of his memories. As Lewis released all of his painful moments from his past, hundreds of demons began to surround the monster. The hero was glad that finally at least someone would see and understand all his pain. This was too much for the monster to bear, and he left the boy's consciousness, rushing away from him. Coming to his senses, Lewis asked him not to run away because he was not finished yet. But the monster did not listen to him, approaching his shelter. Once safe, he huddled in a far corner, trembling with fear, for he had met a real monster for the first time. A few moments later, Lewis kicked down the door, asking why the monster had run away from him. Lopez was steering his play in the right direction, saying that few can smile in the face of the cry, which brings out the most painful memories of people, destroying the enemy. Suddenly he froze. He couldn't understand why Cry was so scared. The monster threw a doll lying nearby at the guy, telling him to go away. Lewis looked at the thing thrown at him. He remembered that he had delivered a similar doll to a woman who had lost her child. The next moment he knelt down before the monster, asking if the name Sophia was his old name. The monster responded to the name, saying it sounded familiar. The next moment he felt a terrible headache. The hero became worried about the monster, asking what was wrong with him. Suddenly, a green thread burst out of his back and attacked the guy. Lewis tried to fend off the attack with his weapon. Having flown some distance, he saw several more of the same threads breaking through from the monster's back. The guy managed to get out of that room, dodging constant attacks. Once he was at a safe distance, he stopped, mentally thanking Amelia for strengthening his skills a little earlier. Suddenly, his weapon was entwined with many threads. Lopez appeared and said that he had been watching the guy for a long time, and that he would prefer to keep such a dangerous weapon to himself. Taking a few steps forward, he apologized for his tears, explaining that, being close to the weeping, he too was subjected to this ability. The next moment, Lewis was surrounded by a dozen puppets. Trying to hold back his tears, the boy said that he was very touched by the fact that the director himself came down to supervise the process. At Lopez's direction, the puppets brought a chair for his distinguished employee. When they both sat down, the director asked the hero what the most important thing in running a business was. Without waiting for an answer, he himself answered that it was a demand. Only with demand can you achieve success, but to strengthen it, you need to make sure that your services are in demand. Cry is the child he raised to help him identify his client's fears. Knowing this, he makes them a reality, maintaining a constant flow of clients. After that, he used his puppeteer ability to bring Cry to them, saying that if he killed the guy, Lopez would get points to level up. When the monster was close enough, the man handed him his revolver, aiming it at the guy. Lewis protected himself from the shot using the console that Lenya left for him. He said it was rude to kill his best worker like that without giving him the last word. After that, he turned on the console. This artifact could call the girl for help. Lopez was alarmed by the whirlwind that arose around them. All of the man's puppets were thrown back several meters from the hero. But a few moments later, the wind died down and no one appeared in front of the guy. Lopez sighed with relief. Immediately after this, the puppets rushed at the guy. When one of them almost reached its target, something happened that the man never expected. Lenny's weapon appeared from space and protected Lewis from the attack. The director realized that he would have to deal with the guy himself. The pillow cut all the threads that Lopez had released. Having freed herself from the obstacle, she dealt devastating damage to the man. Suddenly, the guy's weapon was released from its bonds. Lewis picked it up, noting that the pillow was a truly deadly weapon. Sometime later, the console disappeared. It was a one-time artifact. Now Lewis had to deal with Lopez himself.